Hi everybody, welcome to Sprague Woodturning. My name is Jim. If you haven't been here before, this is predominantly a turning channel where each and every week I show people how to make things on the lathe. If it doesn't go round, I typically don't like doing it. This week we're going to be working with some really nice looking cherry burl. But this cherry burl certainly has some conditions, got a really big void right here. And the other thing that I really don't like about this piece is the fact that we have a high wing on this side and a low wing on this side. So one way to fix that is with some colored epoxy. So that's what we're going to do this week. First things first, we got to mount this on the lathe, get it all trimmed up because it has anchor seal on it, and get the edge cleaned up, and then we can do some casting. So this is a twice turned bowl. As you can see, it was turned, well, pretty much 4 years ago. So a lot of times when I put this in the chuck, I'll see if when wood pieces dry, for those who are not aware of it, they go oval, and the tenons will go oval. And when I first put this in, I thought it was good, and then you can see there's some movement there. So, you know, this really isn't safe to turn. So then we're gonna have to pull it back off the lathe and use the marking gauge, the center finder here. And because we're using a rounded surface, that's the surface that's basically the side that I want to use. If you have square stock, then you would use the other side. There you go. Now that should be more or less centered. And it's important to get this centered because if you don't, when you go to cut the tenon might be too small, and then you're in real trouble. I should also mention that this is a commission for Janet. She lives in the area here. I've done a number of pieces for her. And she was like, you know, can you get this cherry bowl done before you move out east? So this is going to be her bowl. And you know, I would like to personally thank you all for being here to watch this video. And if you're not aware of it, I do upload every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I turn my videos into premieres so that we can use the live chat function and talk about the project as it's being made on the lathe. Now, the goal here is to true this up, strip off this anchor seal because epoxy will not stick to anchor seal. You cannot leave any of that in a casting because what will happen is when you're trimming it away, it will, you know, once you expose that area where the anchor seal is, there's a good chance that a big chunk of epoxy is going to come off and hit you. So you really don't want to do that. Sometimes, especially if it's an end grain bowl, you can throw it on after it's been dried and you won't have any issues mounting it on the lathe. The tenon will not be exactly round, but it'll be round enough that it's securely held that you can actually carry on it and, you know, turn it like a normal twice turn bowl. And that's what this is. These are called twice turn bowls. They are roughed out to every 10 inches in diameter. The bowl is left 1 inch thick. That way, when the bowl dries, you don't have you have enough meat to turn away to essentially finish the bowl. If your thickness isn't adequate enough, then what will happen is after the bowl dries and it warps and twists, well, there may not be enough room to true it up afterwards. I should also mention that I am using the 5/8 bowl gouge from David Ellsworth, and I really love this gouge. I was using different profiles when I first started, and then I bought an Ellsworth gouge, man, I don't know how long, 20 years ago. It's been a while. And basically haven't really used another gouge since, and any of the gouges that I get, I grind them to this profile. The Irish grind is what this is. So, you know, this is a beautiful piece of wood, but it's full of issues. And I know there's going to be some people that say, well, you know, maybe you should have just left this the way it is. And well, that's not really me. It's not. Yeah, this is beautiful wood, but you'll see coming up that there are some punky soft areas in it that just really didn't look good. So that's why I went with the epoxy route, and you know, the fact that it really wasn't it's very out of balance. And when I make my bowls, I really like my bowls to be in balance, and bowls like this really kind of mess with my mind. So before we do any casting, we certainly need to clean out any bark areas or any areas that, you know, there might even be some wormholes or something like that. And then, of course, when that's done, we can carry on with the casting. On the very top edge, of course, you need to clean that up as well, because there could possibly be some anchor seal there. So I'm using just a flat tip screwdriver. And the reason why I'm using a screwdriver and not a chisel is because I don't want the chisels to dig in. I find that typically happens. So by using a flat tip screwdriver, you can get away from that. The other thing that we're going to use here is also a brass coated brush. You can see in the drill, and that usually does a really good job cleaning up the surface as well. Every now and then I might see some bark that I might have to take off, but as a general rule, using the pick tools and the brass coated brush and a flat tip screwdriver does a great job getting these ready for casting. All right, so for the last little while, I've been trying to figure out a way on how to use the bag method here to kind of cast this. There's been some trial and error. There's been actually a fair bit of that, but I've got some clear plastic over this opening, because if I don't do this, then the bag will encroach in this area, so we don't want that to happen. Just taped off some sharp areas, so hopefully it doesn't cut our kitchen bags. And glued, this is bucket material, glue that to the inside of this, and then hopefully that will kind of be the inside form for where the resin is going to be sitting. And of course, we've got a couple of kitchen bags here. These are a little larger than I'd like to have, but the other ones I have are too small. And I'm going to try this method again. I really want to try and keep resin or epoxy out of this area. So just a couple of cable ties here, and hopefully these stay on. This is not a dovetail joint or dovetail profile on this tenon, so it may not stay, but we'll see. And what I'm going to do with this, again, here's some old just bucket material that I've hot melt glued together. That's the proper size. This will go in here. I do want this to be orientated a certain way, like that. Looks like I'm going to have to make another one to go on the inside of here to keep this bag material from encroaching down to where the resin is going to be. So just let me sort that out and be right back. Okay, well, here's what I've done. There's bucket material that's kind of glued to the outside of the bowl. And then, of course, we got this piece on the inside. And then there's another piece of bucket material, so that I pulled the two garbage bags up and then slid this collar on the outside of it to kind of hold everything in place. And then what we're going to do with this is another homemade bucket. I'm going to take a bunch of rice. And the idea with this is that it will push up on the bottom of this, and hopefully everything will stay tight. What I'm going to do here, by the way, I've been at this for hours. It's been a while. So there's that, and now I just hope that I've got enough rice pushing up on that bag so that it's not really going to sag, and then we'll have a bunch of resin pooling. The whole reason why I'm doing this is so the resin isn't going to pool on the bottom of the bowl, hopefully. All right, so here's two more kitchen bags. Actually, I'm going to fill this over here. Well, that's not going to work. I don't have enough rice. But the idea is here, like if I had, twice as much of this rice, it would push up and basically form a form on the inside of the bowl. That, again, that way we're not wasting resin. So I guess I'm going to have to switch to marbles. This bag won't work either. It's too small, I think. All right, well, where there is a will, there is a way. All right, let's finally mix up some resin. That's not going to be fun trying to get into the pressure pot. This week we're going to be using Artcast from Designer Epoxy. This is a perfect product for this because if you're looking for color separation, it is easily achieved with Artcast. It does have its limitations where, you can only pour it essentially an inch deep, so you have to be careful there. But one of the colors we're going to use is Ocean Blue. I know I've used this in the past. A lot of people really like it. And the other big fan favorite is Crystal Purple. So I figured the two of these colors together would really make a really neat looking casting, and it certainly does. You've probably seen that from the thumbnail. I know that mold making process was kind of fast and furious for those who were trying to learn resin casting here with twice turned bowls like this. But I didn't want this video to be 20 minutes long just making a mold. So use that bucket material and it will keep that plastic from encroaching into the resin areas. All right, so I've already moved the casting bucket into my pressure pot. So what I'm going to do is take these in, put them by my heater, and once they reach, between 50 to 55 degrees Celsius, we'll do the pour. All right, so this is what I do. I put it close to the electric heater, and as this, warms up, it actually thins out the epoxy, so it's easier to mix up to. So I keep mixing it while this is ongoing. And anyway, once it reaches between 50 and 55, then we can start pouring. It's going to be pretty tight to do so in here. So my goal is to pour a color on each side. And, wherever they meet should give us another color because they'll blend together. But anyway, I'm still waiting for them to warm up. Right now, 34 degrees Celsius. Anyway, bring you back here in a minute. All right, so I'm a little worried that once my marbles go in here, that this stuff is not going to get any epoxy. So I'm just going to take a little bit of it now, dump it in there, 2 different colors, and then I'll throw the marbles on top. Now I haven't used marbles in a casting like this in a while. I like to stick to rice, that way I can turn it away if there's a leak. But in this case, the marbles actually allow the resin to flow around them better to fill in areas like this. But I forgot. All right, I'll see you once the epoxy warms up. All right, we're at 53.3 Celsius, so time to pour. Yep, it's definitely warm. In a perfect world, I would have poured both of these at the same time on each side of the bowl, but just because the area is so small to work with, I thought that was kind of going to be very hard to do. And yeah, I know that this isn't going to be enough, but it should give us a solid casting, so that's the main thing we're after here. So this casting easily could have used another bucket of this stuff. The problem is that, I was really worried about this thermal cracking. And it really wasn't the look I was going for. So that's why I erred on the side of caution and decided just to go with the amount of resin that I had. And I'm good with it. This is a beautiful looking bowl. We have to do a little bit of trimming, lose a bit off the top, but hey, I'm good with it. All right, I'm just going to pressurize this to 60 psi. See you guys in there tomorrow. So this is the next day. Some dum-dum forgot to turn the microphone on, so That's why I'm doing a voiceover. And you can see how the resin has really kind of filled in that whole area. So I'm really happy about that. And, one of the benefits of using this method is the fact that, you can fill in all little cracks and voids where, if you don't use this method like this, then you have to build dams around things and, maybe multiple pours in order to do this. Yes, this is no shortage of work. And I must say that this bucket material actually put up quite a fight. I don't think that the epoxy was fully cured as I poured that at the end of the day, and then here we are the first thing in the morning. So, it's probably like 16 hours or so. So that's why it's putting up such a fight. If it was, say, a day or 2 days later, then it wouldn't have had any issues at all because the epoxy would have been more brittle. But there, it's a beautiful looking casting. Like I said, we're going to use a little bit off the wings, but, I'm good with it. I thought I would use this method again. We did have, for the most part, the cable ties did prevent that epoxy from weeping down where the tenon is. So, the goal here is to reuse this tenon. So we're not taking any more size off of the bowl. And just using the multi-tool there from Milwaukee to do it. And I was so happy with the results last time I did this. Here we are again. And again, it actually worked very well. So when this went into the chuck, it actually lined up, I couldn't ask for anything better, really, to be quite honest with you, especially pieces that, have come out of a casting bucket. All right, so we're going to start off here with the number 3 Hercules from Hunter Tool Systems. Love this tool for these hybrid bowls, epoxy and wood. As you'll see, I'm wearing a glove, and the reason for that is there are some pretty large pieces of epoxy that could break off of this and then hit you in the hand. And if it does, yeah, it hurts, but a lot of times it will cut you too. So that's why I'm wearing a glove. I know that there's this big debate on no glove or glove, but I would sooner wear a glove as long as your hand stays on the operator side of the tool rest. There really should never be any issues. If I was working on a metal lathe, that would be a complete different thing because metal lathes are typically gear to gear and they're unforgiving, where most wood lathes are not. But anyway. I'm wearing a glove. If you don't want to wear a glove, that's fine. But just know that you can expect to get some resin shards in your hands. So yeah, there's our first kind of look at it. Good color separation. I know that it doesn't really show up on the camera all that great, especially when the finish goes on for whatever reason. Well, it didn't when I was looking at the screen, but when I was sitting here editing it later on, I did notice that yeah, for the most part, you can pick up the color separation. I know that these colors are kind of close to each other. So that, again, shows you the benefit of ArtCast, that, if you're looking for that color separation, that it is a really good epoxy for that, even when you've got colors that are close like these two are. So anyway, give it a try if you haven't. And, of course, all the links are in the description down below to all of my sponsors. So if you need any stuff in on down there, check them out and put some money back in your pocket. Just a little bit ways to go here yet. There actually have been some comments that, this pair of gloves that I wear, they're pretty ratty looking. And, but you know what? It's like that perfect t-shirt that fits you, or that perfect pair of pants or shorts that fit you perfectly. You put them on, you're like, oh yeah, that feels good. It's too tight, it's not too loose. And that's what this glove is. Both of these gloves, I typically wear these gloves when I was roughing out. I typically didn't use them at all when I was finished turning prior to getting into epoxy. Now that I'm in epoxy, I really definitely see the benefit of wearing a glove wall turn epoxy. But yeah, every now and then I get some comments like, oh, Jim can't afford a new pair of gloves. No, Jim just really loves these gloves. So when they totally do fall apart, I'm going to be heartbroken. Some people have been asking why I keep switching back from the Ellsworth gouge to the Hercules, and probably the main reason for that is I can take a bigger bite with the Ellsworth gouge. Especially when, if I'm just dealing with wood, I'm straight up using the Ellsworth gouge. And then you'll see me switch back to the Hercules here because I know that, it's not going to be long before the edge comes off of that. And that's the main reason why I'm not using it. And, I know that I've said this in the past, that the Hercules is very similar in use to a bowl gouge. So it's an easy transition to go back and forth from both of them because you essentially use them the same way. Probably the main difference is you can't really do shear scraping with the Hercules like you can with the Ellsworth gouge, but it's long, swept back cutting edge. And, I've covered that a number of times here on the channel as well. You could probably drop the handle on the Hercules and present it to the wood where you might get a shear cut like that. If you have a really sharp cutter on the Hercules, a new cutter, it will cut essentially like a shear cut. So, I typically, you don't ever see me use scrapers here on the channel. And the reason for that is because I typically don't see the need for it. I really don't. I do start sanding at 60 grit, and I know for some people that might be fairly low. Like, they want to start at minimum 80 and maybe 120. But I look at sandpaper as a tool and treat it as such. When I first started turning, I was always going for that perfect surface, and I've still got a bunch of scrapers that I really don't use. I found that even using a lot of scrapers before negative rake scrapers came in, that sometimes they were really grabby, and then you'd end up damaging your bowl even more than before you started. So in my mind, maybe I'm spending a little bit more on sandpaper, but in the end I can produce, say, one more bowl a day because I'm not going for that perfect surface where it's literally going to be sanded away in seconds when I hit it with 60 grit. So there you go, that surface is virtually ready for sanding. And again, that last cut was an exact same push cut that you would have done with a gouge, but it was done with a Hercules. So last thing that I want to do is go to the outside of this bowl again. What I find typically when I'm working with twice turned bowls, I'll do the outside first, then I'll go to the inside, match the inside profile to the outside profile. And then I'll typically go back out on the outside profile again and trim it again, because bowls will move a little bit as that tension is being released in the wood. And there's the shear cut. That there will give you a really, really clean surface. And there's absolutely no need to use a scraper on the outside of a bowl. You have easy access to it. And by shear scraping, like you see me doing with the gouge, resin and wood, it doesn't matter. It will leave you a beautiful surface. The shear scraping will take a little bit of practice to do, but I sometimes will lift the tool rest substantially, like an inch and a half, and then that way it's cutting nicely, and it's not, the handle of the gouge doesn't hit the locking handle on my banjo. These are the 3.5 inch stipple discs from sandpaper.ca, and again, I'm starting at 60 grit. I'll go to 180 on this piece. I do plan on doing another epoxy coat on this. It actually wasn't my original plan, but the wood will tell you exactly what it needs. So I was also having a problem getting next to the jaws up near the headstock here on the chuck. So having a right angled powered sander here, air powered sander, is really nice to get in there and take care of those areas. And there you go, we're ready for the epoxy. All right, I was actually going to skip the epoxy coat, but on the back side near where the bottom's going to be, there's some grain there that's pretty soft, and you can see where it's divoted a bit. So we're going to use 3 ounces of the Pro Series to harden that up and fill in any other little imperfections that we have. So I'll explain this for the new people. The reason why I'm using an epoxy coat is that will harden up any of those little soft areas. Also, if there's any little cracks in the wood, it will fill those. And along with the resin, if you have little bubbles in your resin, it will fill those. And anyway, since switching to this method, my castings have turned out much, much nicer. Check out that. Beautiful Burl, beautiful epoxy, purple and blue right there. Same thing in there. Nice purple spot right in the center. Again, the lighting isn't exactly the best. This whole section here is purple, pretty much. Really nice small Burl eyes. Can't talk today. Now on the back side of this, it's some really substandard grain. It's actually quite soft. So, you know, there's bits and pieces of it missing here and there. It's indented a little bit from sanding. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up or not. Probably be more prominent tomorrow. Anyway, I think what I'm going to do to help this out is I'm going to put some tape. I'm going to put some more resin on here and then put some tape over this. Same thing with here. There's a big split right there. So I'm going to do that. Well, after I shut the camera off. But anyway, I love this thing. Really nice pearl effect from the resin. Very nice. Well, all right, it is next day. I thought I'd show you this before we start doing anything. I put drops of epoxy in here yesterday, so it's pretty thick. So I'm going to trim that up. The other thing is there was a pretty decent sized crack back here. So I put the epoxy on, then I put a piece of tape over it, but there still was actually quite a void to fill. So anyway, I threw some CA glue in this crack right here. Again, not really probably going to see it all that much. Anyway, I'm just waiting for that to cure up a little bit, and then what I'm going to do is give this a trimming and then sand, because it's pretty thick in here and it's pretty thick in other spots down here at the bottom. The other thing too is where this soft little area is here, I'm going to trim this up and hopefully we'll be able to delete that too. Again, try to show that. Right here is the big divot right there. So hopefully we'll be able to trim that up and sand that, and then she'll look all spiffy. So the other noticeable thing that, since switching to this method, after the pieces go back on there, you can see like how far that was divoted in. So again, I'm just kind of measuring things to make sure that we're going to be good here. But anyway, now that this grain is essentially been hardened up by the epoxy, well, then it cuts clean. So then, there's not really a massive need to do any shear scraping here, because you can cut the surface cleaner than you could before. And, as we work on this piece after the sanding this time around, I would say that the surface is easily probably 70-80% better than what it was before. So, that's another reason to, if you've been debating on doing this, and this method can be used for just straight up wood pieces. If you're dealing with really punky grain, try this method. You may be surprised how well it does work. And there's a very clean surface ready for sandpaper. So anyway, we're just going to trim the rim on this and trim the inside, and then we'll be able to sand this time from 60 to 800. And again, I could have tried to just sand this instead of trimming it away, but you'll see when I shut the lathe off here that you'll still see some low areas, so that would be very tough to do sanding wise. So it's always best to trim these pieces if you can. That way you're not using a ton of sandpaper to sand the stuff back. Like there's a low area there. Again, measuring, this is one thing that I do measure a lot. And, while the vast majority of my bowls are usually about a ½ inch in thickness, one of the reasons for that is so that I can work with pieces like this. I can, if I come up against a problem, then I can address it, and I still have enough meat there to turn away so that, your bowl doesn't get, super thin. Bowls that are 1/4 inch in thickness, those are plenty thick as well. But, I'm usually, with these hybrid bowls, I'm typically shooting for a ½ inch, because keep in mind that this epoxy is bonded to the wood, and the thinner that epoxy gets, the more fragile it gets, along with the wood. And you also wash the color out of the epoxy too. If you're going for, something that's got a bold color in it, the thinner it gets, the more that color will get washed out of it. So back again with the 3.5 inch stipple disc from sandpaper.ca. They are working on their issues with the 3.5 inch stipple discs. But like I said last week, they have lots of 2.5 in stock. So feel free to check those out. And before we put on any finish this time around, we're going to buff this with the Triple E buffing compound from the Burl buffing system. And then we will clean this with some denatured alcohol and get ready for our first coat of Waterlux. Love my Waterlux. I know I've been getting a lot of messages from people that have switched to it, and they're really enjoying it as well. Check it out. It's great stuff. All right, here is your first coat of Waterlux Gloss. So when you see me putting this on, you may see me stop the lathe every now and then and make sure that I've got an area filled in. There is one little divot on the front face, but on the back side, it has really, really improved the quality of that surface. Again, Pro Series, check it out. Well, there it is in its first coat of Waterlux. Looking at it in the camera, hopefully you're going to be able to pick up the purple on one side and the blue on the other, but I'm just looking at the camera and I'm seeing that it's pretty hard to pick up. Same thing here. This is almost split in half. Purple, a little bit of blue, big patch of blue, but it's just not really showing up all that great on the camera as I'm looking at it. Maybe it will be afterwards. Definite good color separation. And there is a bit of a soft spot right here, but it is considerably better than it was yesterday as well. Look at that epoxy. Love that pearl effect. Awesome. All right, see you tomorrow for the second coat. Let me know what you think. I think it's beautiful. See you tomorrow. So this is in fact the next day, and again we're going to buff the surface with the Triple E buffing compound. Now I'm using the Triple E buffing pad, and I'm putting a fair bit of pressure on it. So that way it will kind of level any lumps and bumps that are on the surface. A lot of times, I think a lot of people when they use this method don't push hard enough on the buffing pad. And then, of course, cleaning with a denatured alcohol before the next coat. So important. All right, here's your second coat of Waterlux Gloss. Well, there it is in its second coat. Yeah, just I can see that it's not really showing up all that great. The purple and the blue together on the camera. Hopefully it's better in the video. But yeah, this is almost 100% purple here. But I know it looks blue, but it's definitely purple. There's a band of purple and blue here. In person, you can see kind of streaks of purple throughout this. Beautiful Burl. Can't go wrong with cherry Burl. Ever. That is for sure. Anyway, let me know in the comments what you think. I'm just going to do the third coat because I'm sure there's going to be a third coat off camera. And we'll see when we're doing the bottom. So after 3 coats are finished, this piece is finally ready to have the bottom done on it. So here I'm using the vacuum chuck like I usually do. And of course this one's made by One Way. I have the complete One Way system and highly recommend it. All right, well that's going to do it for the video. We'll have a last little chat about this here in a little bit. But I'd like to personally thank you all for watching my videos. It really does mean the world to me. And especially special shout out to the members. Thank you for your support. I really, truly do appreciate it. Well, all right, let's have a last little chat about this week's project. Can't go wrong with cherry Burl. Of course, cherry is the queen of North American hardwoods. Really nice pearl effect on this as well. Mostly purple here. Yeah, you might be able to see it there now. And lots of purple here as well. No, like to me, when I'm looking at the camera, it just comes up blue. Trust me, it's really purple. So areas in here that were really difficult, might be able to see them there. You can see little soft spots right there. And well, there's a little more there, but you know, compared to what it was before, it's really good. And the other major area was up in here. So that has improved substantially than what it was before. Here is the very bottom. And as per normal, I am out of time because it is Thursday. Size on this piece is 12.5 inches across, 3.5 inches tall, so it's a really decent sized bowl, and it's your, my typical 1/2 inch thickness. Anyway, like I said, this was a commission, so I haven't even shown Janet this yet, so I'm sure she'll be happy with it. Don't forget to put designer epoxy in the comments down below to be entered into the next giveaway at 135,000 subscribers when we get there. And of course, that's only open to continental USA and Canada. By also commenting down below, you'll be entered into my giveaway. And it doesn't matter where you are in the world. If you are the winner, I will ship it to you at my expense. So please comment away. Next week is, well, I've been working on next week's project already. And, it's been roadblock after roadblock after roadblock. So it has been a challenge, but it does look very cool. But it has been a challenge. So that is next week, so please come on back for that. All right, well, that's it. I'm out of here. Take care, stay safe. Don't forget the bell. Please share my videos with your friends. And of course, it doesn't cost anything to subscribe. So hit that subscribe button so we can get more people on board here and I can give some more free stuff away. All right, have a great weekend. See you next week.